Hey, how's it going? Welcome into the Irish NFL show. Week 18 special Sunday morning live. It's been a while since we've done this. Bring Mark in as well. Hi, Mark. You got here in time. How's it going?
Yeah,
Right?
It's the last day of the season. I have plenty of old school Broncos memorabilia behind me because I want to forget about the season that just happened. But we have lots of brilliant games to discuss today.
Hi, Brian.
Good morning, guys. Busy schedule ahead. Some interesting games still to come. A lot of games that really have no meaning, I guess, but there's certainly a few that will take up a lot of the conversation this morning in terms of who will make their way into the playoffs, which you haven't looked at who's there at the moment. You've got a great set of games ahead of us next week, but maybe not so much today.
And I just want to say congrats to the Chiefs last night. Congrats to the Cowboys for putting more than 50 points on the board, which is always nice to do. Dak Prescott thrown for 5 touchdowns. I wouldn't necessarily have kept him in the game that long, but however, Mike McCarthy has his ways. So good win for them last night over the also playoff bound Philadelphia Eagles.
Absolutely. The Irish NFL show is presented by Trust Gaming and also Matchbook Betting Exchange. £20, €20 welcome offer gives you money back as cash if your first bet loses. The bonus code is Irish NFL Show. All the T's and C's are below. Please be gamble aware 18 plus, and we will talk about some of the odds throughout today's show as well. In terms of what is coming up today, we've got those games Saturday night are done. Packers, Lions, Colts, Jags, Washington Giants, Bears, Vikings, Bengals, Browns, Titans, Texans, Steelers, Ravens, and then the late window, Saints, Falcons, Panthers, Bucks, Patriots at Dolphins, Jets at Bills, 49ers, Rams, Seahawks, Cardinals, Chargers, Raiders. And from last night, Chiefs are number one in the AFC. The Titans need to win today to try and get a week off. And that is how the NFC stands at the minute. Cowboys moving to 12-5 last night. Anyway, enough of me talking. We're here. It's week 18. Are we going to talk about last night? No, just move on swiftly, yeah?
I don't think there's a lot to say on last night, Michael. I think the games probably went as the vast majority of people expected, and we will see later, probably tomorrow, more on the Broncos situation. The other three teams are playoff bound.
Yeah, it was a lot more competitive than I expected in the first game. But look, the Chiefs found the way to win and keep their hopes alive with that first save. But the second game, Mark summed it up. I mean, backups in from the various different stages of the game, across two teams. But obviously, Dak, that was a bit of a storyline this morning. In fact, he played for so long. But with the exception of that, there's very little else to say on the two games.
Just one last comment. Drew Lock, MVP 2023. The campaign starts here.
I will say I suppose Mike McCarthy leaving Dak in. You're trying to get a guy his confidence back. He's been really up and down this year. The fact that he was able to put so many points up, I think, going into the playoffs, I imagine that was the thinking behind it. And let's focus on that quarterback.
Absolutely. We're going to look at a few games individually for a start off. I think there's 4 games. Colin, you're going to start us off with the Bears and the Vikings, and then we'll get some picks.
Yeah, this is a game where both teams have pretty much made it known that it's the last game for their respective head coaches. Very likely that Matt Nagy will be let go and that Mike Zimmer will be leaving Minnesota. I think his comments regarding the QB that was taken in the draft in April kind of, I guess, showed his feelings on his general manager and where their relationship is. It's difficult to see him remaining, even if they get the win today. For the Bears, it's been a really frustrating season. They took Justin Fields. Then Matt Nagy made the decision that they were going to start Dalton. Then it was Fields. Then it was QB hokey cokey. We saw Foles at times. Fields has been injured. They haven't been able to protect him. He's not going to play today. It's going to be Andy Dalton to finish the season. It feels like a bit of a lost season for the Bears in many ways. They definitely would have liked to see more from Fields. I imagine he will be the starter from day one. come September. But I think this game, probably one to keep an eye on is Robert Quinn. He needs one more sack in order to be the first player to have at least 19 sacks in a single season with 2 different franchises. That would be quite an impressive feat. I'm going to go with Zimmer's Vikings. I think they have a little more to play for to win this one, but I don't think it'll be one people will remember.
Yeah, it's the Vikings for me in this game. It's a nothing game. Bears will try to finish on a high for Nagy, but I think in the end, the Vikings will find a way to win the game.
That was short and sweet, Brian. That was lovely. I'm going to go. You mean you can't trust the Vikings on anything? I think they have definitely given up on their head coach. The Bears surprised me last week. I mean, their defense was totally. I mean, I know it was Mike Glennon, it was the New York Giants with a -10 in passing yards, but I thought they actually still came out and played quite strongly. I think Justin Fields will perform because it's a meaningless game and there's nothing to win, there's nothing to lose, there's nothing about it whatsoever. And again, of course, if they lose, it doesn't affect their draft position because they're giving away their first round pick to the New York Giants already. So I actually have the Bears to win this game in the battle of meaninglessness.
I'm picking the Vikings. Well done to the Bears last week, but after I see them in person, absolutely no chance taking the Vikings. Okay, I call it. Brian, you're going to look ahead to Washington against the Giants.
Yeah, another very lackluster game in terms of how to finish the season for both sides, really. Washington had a bit, their season kind of started kind of disappointing manner. There was so much expectation in terms of how that defense would do this year. On the back of last year, it didn't materialize. Obviously, Chase Young didn't start off at the rate we expected to see either. He then obviously got the injury. He was gone. And then at halfway point of the season, they seemed to have got it together. They rallied. They won 4 to 5 games in a row. And Rivera quoted about the fact that there was issues in the dressing room and he was going to get it resolved. And that seemed to have gone away. They were playing well and then they fell off the cliff again. And look, we saw what happened a couple of weeks ago in Washington. In Dallas when they were playing on that Sunday night game where the players were arguing with each other on the sideline. And obviously what's kind of embroiled this week in terms of the game is the fact that Joe Judge referred to that last week in his moment of madness, or should I say his 10.5 minutes of madness, where he literally couldn't stop talking off one question and he kept digging more holes than a graveyard with the extent of throwing Pat Shermer under the bus. Ben McAdoo got it, and then Coach Rivera. And all week, Rivera said nothing on it, but obviously they kept probing until yesterday afternoon he finally snapped and said Coach Judge should focus on his own team. The Washington football team are going to win this game comfortably. It's a fortunate situation, in my opinion, for Giants fans because you'll understand the fact we're going through a similar phase to what the Broncos are in terms of one playoff appearance in 10 years, and it's not good enough. And the fans are being let down by the fact that George is going to come back next year, no matter what happens today, no matter what the circumstances. The only alternative is that the new GM comes in and makes the decision that he wants his own man. But at that stage, I think that's highly unlikely. I think Marlowe will get his wish, which is to keep George, and it's kind of demoralising Washington to win this game. Don't see any way how the Giants are going to win. Bear in mind they're starting a third quarterback and they brought another guy in this week off the practice squad who could get in the game. So it's a bit Harry Carey on the QB situation. Washington to win the game.
Yeah, I've got Washington as well. Judge's comments. I imagine Ron Rivera will have his team steaming. So it's Washington all day for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, everybody saw both the game last week and also Joe Judge's comments last week. In reality, there can only be one winner. In the most irritating stat of all time, Brian, I'm sorry, this is a fact. This is very hurtful, I know. And someone else called this out, so I'm going to take your thunder, Colin, probably. In the last 5 years, only one team has never broken 500 at any point in the season. That team is the New York Giants. The woe of sadness continues. And Joe Judge to be fired tomorrow. Michael. Even Ron Rivera might get fired tomorrow because his owner is Dan Schneider. So we're going to talk about hirings and firings. But yeah, I think Joe's rant has made it inevitable.
If Rivera was to fire, if Rivera was to be fired tomorrow, I'll pay for his taxi down to New York. I'm sure Denver would do the same.
Hi, everyone commenting. Hi to David Connolly. Let's go Raiders. Love the show, guys. Keep it going. Brad Britt Chief. Let's go Texans. Lifelong fan. Owen Healy. Bolt up, baby. Welcome in, lads. Thanks for joining us, folks. Going to try and get through all these games, and we'll get to your comments ASAP. Washington. Okay. Mark, you're going to look at the Packers against the Lions.
Yeah, and look, there's not much. There's not much to be said. And notice Column's got votes in there already. On this, Packers have already sealed up the first.
That's my
seed.
bad. I done the wrong
It's
graphic.
all right,
It's my
man.
bad. Sorry. Yeah.
Lions' season of depravity is about to be brought to a close. But the Lions' season's been so weird because there have been spurts. There has been bits where they've been playing hard. They've been playing hard for Dan the Dude Campbell. And you just wonder, are there little shoots of recovery? Today could be interesting. Jared Goff's status is still unknown. So it could be an old Green Bay backup who's actually going to play against the Packers today. And frankly, the only thing that really the Packers can lose today is health. I mean, that's going to be the most important thing. For anyone that hasn't been following the Lions as closely, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the better of the St. Browns, you would say, has proved great promise as a rookie. I think he's caught over 80 catches. So he's one to watch out for if you haven't seen many of the Lions games. But Packers, keep everybody healthy, keep the offensive line in particular healthy because you've had to retool that a few times, and see, just keep everyone clean. I still think the Packers, even if they put Jordan Love in there for the whole game and all their backups, have more than enough for the Lions. So I will go with the Packers. But one last stat just to finish with. The Packers, I think, are leading the NFL in turnover ratio. They're plus 16. They've only actually had 10 turnovers in the whole season. Remember back to week 1. 3 turnovers against the Saints, -3 coming out of week 1, and that's how they've turned it around. That is a critical stat going into the postseason and something that's notable of obviously how clean they were for the other 16 or 15 games they've played after week 1. So Packers for me.
Go on,
I was just going to say, obviously, this week has been dominated with the Aaron Rodgers non-story because I don't believe there was anything in it around boycott. I think it was absolutely ridiculous, and it led to some very funny tweets, both from Rodgers himself. But in fairness, I think our friend who's been on the show, Stephen O'Rourke, who came out with the best one. Mark, this is like something you'd say, but Stephen tweeted saying, "I'm not sure why Aaron Rodgers threatening to boycott the Super Bowl for the 16th time in 17 seasons is news, to be honest." And I thought, wow, that's something like Mark Cockrell would say.
I did see Steve's comment, actually, and I was tempted to call it out. And I was like, no, I'm not going to have another dig. But thank you for calling up, Colin. Appreciate it.
It's probably one we can discuss probably more on the show tomorrow, even when we have time to, I suppose, recap week 18. But obviously earlier in the week, there was the story around the fact that some journalists who have the MVP votes weren't picking Aaron Rodgers because of the most vaccine player or some funny thing he came out with. So some people are deferring away from health issues and stuff off the field as opposed to his play on the field, which is I think is a bit disrespectful because he's been the standout player all year long. He's actually going to play by all accounts. I'm surprised. I think he is going to actually start the game. Maybe they'll give him a couple of series, but no, for me, yeah, it'll be competitive enough, but I think the Packers win.
We keep talking about Aaron Rodgers, but I mean, I suppose it is. It's Aaron Rodgers and 52 scapegoats in waiting. So we'll see how it goes.
Oh.
I am taking the Packers. I just don't think the Lions are going to win this game. And the Packers season starts next week or in 2 weeks' time. Can't wait for it.
Both coaches in place starting next season?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And just one, I know we're going to try and roll through this, but just one thing, because you mentioned Joe Judge before and I meant to say it. I don't think Judge will be the first coach. I think a coach will go today. My sources/sauces indicate that. Okay.
So it's funny you say that, Michael, because someone said last night in one of the podcasts, Black Monday. It's not Black Monday anymore. It's Black Sunday night, because by the time it hits midnight in the States, 3 or 4 are already been given the door. So I think you're not far off there.
Top of that at the end if we got time. I really like this game, Steelers against the Ravens, and I'm so gracious that everyone gave me this chance to talk about this game. Big Ben's last game, unless he's going to do like some sort of Wolf of Wall Street thing where he's like, I'm not leaving, which wouldn't surprise me after watching the Monday night game and seeing his reaction and how sad he was. But I predicted the Steelers to win on Monday night, and I mean, I don't want to give away my pick for the Browns game later on, but I mean the Browns didn't really show up on Monday night. That was an awful game to watch. But it's Ben's last game, and in terms of the AFC playoff picture, the Steelers and the Ravens still have a chance of getting into the playoffs. The Steelers 8-7-1, the Ravens 8-8. Ben Roethlisberger only flew for 123 yards on Monday night, giving them the lowest single game yards per attempt for any quarterback in NFL history with at least 45 passes. In terms of the Ravens, Lamar Jackson's out again. You have to start to wonder here now, is he going to play again this season? I don't know what's going to happen there. Tyler Huntley's playing. But the thing is, I understand the whole I guess romantic factor around this game, and in the fact that the player with such a high profile of Ben Roethlisberger and the career that he's had, it's his last game. I don't see him rolling into Baltimore and winning. Yes, he can give it to Najee Harris and try and bounce it down a bit, but his opposition on Monday against Cleveland was perfect because Baker Mayfield couldn't do anything. I literally fast forwarded through every Browns play and looked at the bottom first, second, third, fourth, and just gave up. They had no opposition. I think Najee Harris might be effective in some parts of the game, but I think Tyler Huntley, the combination of the running backs and Freeman, will just get this done for the Ravens. I don't think it's going to be comfortable, but I still think maybe Ben should have walked off the field on Monday and not returned. That would have been but at the end of the day, you're going for a playoff spot. You're never going to do that. I'm taking the Ravens, and I can't put my pick on the screen yet because I go last. Go on ahead, Colin.
I think the Steelers have more to play for. They have a small, I think a smaller, it's only like a minute percentage, but a better chance of getting to the playoffs. Also Ben's last game, also TJ Watt looking to set the single season sacks record. For me, for that reason, and Mike Tomlin, I'm going to go for the Steelers to win an absolute slugfest between these two.
Michael, you kind of touched on it. If a better team was playing the Steelers on Monday, they wouldn't have won that game. They were very poor. Big Ben was very poor, as you said. It was masked by the fact it was his last game. I think Huntley will be looking to the bigger picture in terms of maybe he'll be moved on somewhere else. You know, the other team might come looking for a trade and make him their starter next year because he hasn't looked quite impressive in the games in which he's played. And I think you'll see that again today. So for me, it's the Ravens.
Yeah, I'm actually very similar to Colin on this. I mean, yes, Big Ben isn't most impressive at the moment, but Najee Harris, 28 carries for 188 yards last week. Mike Tomlin has been, got the magic elixir going, as Jim Harbaugh has, in fairness, with John Harbaugh, with the Ravens this season, making a silk purse out of sales here. I think, and I'm glad you called it out, the TJ Watt one. Set the sacks record, perfect. He's got to. It's a make-believe record because of Brett Favre's give up to Michael Strahan in the past. So I'd love to see him. And on great tweets, JJ Watt tweeted out this week saying, great season, TJ. It'd be even better, though, if the only person who'd done 20-plus sacks in 2 seasons wasn't your older brother and kept bringing it up every now and then. It was a variation on that. It was brilliantly done. Steelers for me.
Marquez would comment and say, Michael destroying the Big Ben romance. Haha. It's not happening. It was great for him on Monday night, but it's not happening today. Tyler Huntley can run, Big Ben can't. So can Drew Lock. Any other points? No? Move on. Great career obviously an incredible career for Ben Roethlisberger. I want to shout out to Mark Hogan's on the graphics going up later on his class, Big Ben's last game. And it'll be interesting to see what the Steelers do in the off season. You can bet on all of those games with our partner Matchbook, Irish NFL show code for the £20, €20 bonus. Let's look ahead to
surefire Hall of Famer, Big Ben Roethlisberger, best quarterback from that famous 2004 class, of course.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to see where he ends up next. ESPN, Fox, Sky Sports. Let's see what happens. Irish NFL show, BigBen7.com. Shout out. Right, Bengals 10-6 at the Browns 7-9. This is going to be interesting. Let's go into this one by one now, lads, in this sense. In terms of the Bengals have already got into the playoffs. They're the AFC North champions. They clinched the number 1 seed at buying home field advantage. Well, they need a bit of help today, Colin. They need to win. The Titans need to lose. Well, it's not possible anymore. Right, hold on. It's early in the morning. Please forgive me. They can't get number 1 seed anymore. Just ignore me. It doesn't happen. Great graphic, but it's gone.
It is. And that's why I don't think either team want this game particularly, I don't think either team have anything to play for. By the sounds of things, the Bengals are going to pull most of their starters. They're going to take a similar approach to what the Eagles did last night. So you're not going to see Joe Burrow, but he says definitely no lingering effects of that injury last week. Hopefully that is the case. We want to see Burrow at his best in the playoffs because they have been sensational on offense this year. We want to see that continue. For the Browns, really disappointing year. So much had kind of gone into the off season. They put so much into the defense. We really thought they might be set to go back to the playoffs, but it has just not worked out like that. It's been drama filled, and more of it this week with Baker arguing with the media in Cleveland, accusing them of making up stories. He won't play today either. I'm going with the Bengals. I think or the Browns. I said to win it. At this point, it's a coin toss. I can't remember who I even said because the Browns defense and Myles Garrett are probably what they have. Realistically, given how Mayfield has played and how toxic it's almost become, not having him around might help them. But I think that both of these teams just want to get this over. The Bengals want to get onto the playoffs and the Browns want to get onto next year.
With 5 minutes to go in the game last night and the Broncos in with an opportunity to win, I wonder were the Bengals reassessing the situation in terms of who was going to play today, because they'd essentially ruled out quite a number of players during the week. But if the Broncos had held on, then the Bengals had won today, they'd be the number 2 seed. But obviously that's gone away now, so they're back to where they were. Yeah, they're not going to play a lot of players. Obviously, they're focused on next week. We touched on it on Monday's show, the fact that they got that late field goal. The plays leading up to it was a bit crazy in terms of how they closed that game out last week, and it nearly caused an injury to their quarterback. So they're right in what they're doing in terms of resting the players. For the Browns, Colin has touched on it. It's been a season of discussion more so around off the field than what's happened on the field, and that's kind of a deflection in a way because they haven't been at the level we expected. You know, they've been gashed with injuries. Chubb was out for a long period. Hunt was out. Ernest Johnson as well when he was in there, but not consistent enough. We had Landry backing Odell Beckham. Odell Beckham gets us traded. There was the conversation that Mayfield and Beckham don't get on. I mean, all this stuff. And Stefanski, who ran a very tight ship last year and seemed to have all the players galvanized and going in the right direction, will obviously reassess who he wants in that locker room for next season, because there's obviously players there that were not fitting the bill in terms of being a team player. Mayfield has had that operation this week, so he's out. I think the Browns will win, more so because they want to finish the season on a high note. And as Colin touched on, the Bengals are resting up for next week. So Browns to win a game that really, you know, you could argue you could have put this into the meaningless bucket that we just went through in terms of the first 4 games.
The Bengals resting up does have implications on seeding. Like, if they rest up and lose this game and the Bills win, then it flips the 3rd and 4th seed. That, you know, I'm a Patriots fan. I'll be watching that closely. That means instead of assuming everyone else wins, instead of New England going to Buffalo, they'll be going to Cincinnati and going to a team. I called it out the other week. I think it's 1990 is the last time. Maybe it was 92. It's the last time that they've actually won a playoff game. So, of course, this week is somewhat meaningless to Cincinnati. What happens next week is really where all the pressure, all the attention comes. But they're a younger team. They hopefully freed from some of that pressure. Zach Taylor's done a great job with them this year. And you guys have outlined it in relation to the Browns. I mean, what a storm. And I won't say the other word that usually precedes that. We started in our season preview almost optimistic. It was like, we're optimistic about the Browns. Like, they finally got it turned around. And look how hard they play in the playoffs as well. Stefanski's done a great job. It's all coming together. And no, it all falls apart so quickly. I'm always reminded of the great Bill Simmons when he was on doing his ESPN column for many years. He always used to say, and remember the lesson, God hates Cleveland. And once again, it seems like God hates Cleveland. I'm going to say, even with backups, God hates Cleveland, even in week 18. And the Bengals just still cause more misery for them. And I've got the Bengals to win.
I've lived through a year of Case Keenum and backups and rubbish, and I'm picking the Bengals. AFC North champs, the backups will beat Cleveland. Cleveland were nowhere near good enough with their starters, or most of their starters on Monday night on national television. Not going to happen today for me. Okay. Right, Saints Falcons. Saints 8-8, Falcons 7-9. The Saints still have a chance of making it to the playoffs, but they need a lot of help today. Colin, who have you got in this game?
I think if the Saints manage to somehow pull it off, and they need a few things to go their way, but to make it to the playoffs, you could make a case, and there are plenty of others that Sean Payton is Coach of the Year, given what he's had to contend with. I understand it's that I think they've had the most starters. I saw that stat of any NFL franchise in history. I think the Titans have had more players, but the Saints have had more starters. This is going to be interesting because the Falcons, obviously under Arthur Smith, have at times been flashed really well, at other times have really disappointed, but they have the chance to sweep the Saints, and no love lost between these two franchises. Matty Ryan got done for taunting, got a fine under John Mara's rule, and that tells you all you need to know about that. This one, keep an eye. Kyle Pitts needs 56 or 58 yards to tie Mike Ditka's record, which has stood for 60 odd years. And I just think that because the Saints have more to play for, they're going to find a way. But one of the other things I think what's been interesting is the Falcons have struggled at times on defense, but looking at stats, AJ Terrell has given up 182 yards all season. Again, you could make a case that he has been the most impressive cornerback in the league this year, but you'd probably need an hour and a half show just to discuss the quarterbacks in the league this year. But he has been mightily impressive, you would have to say, for the Falcons. But I'm going with Saints for this one.
And Saints statistically been the best defense over the past 4 weeks, which is kind of reflective of the season in many ways, because the offense has struggled throughout the year. They haven't really got over the breeze moving on, and obviously James Winston looked to be moving in the right direction at the time. You know, he seemed to be grasping what was expected of him, which wasn't to be throwing big, deep, long balls, but manage the game properly, and now our defense to do stuff. But obviously with his injury, it kind of crashed the season to a certain extent, because they lost 5 games in a row. But then obviously since then they've won 3 of the last 4, and during those games in which they've won, they haven't gone over the 20-point barrier on the offense. So the offense is still struggling. But you're going against an inconsistent side with the team with the season over. And Cam Jordan, who's always loves playing against the Falcons, has 22 sacks against them since 2011. It's a record in the league in terms of 1 pair of sacks against a team. I think he'll have a strong day. I think the Saints will find a way to win, and they'll start looking at the scores elsewhere. The score elsewhere being in San Francisco and the Rams game. But for me, I think the Saints will just about have enough to win this game, but I don't think it'll be a high-scoring game.
If I'm a Saints fan, I am, in fairness, looking forward a little bit, dare I say, still already to 2023, but looking forward with optimism, because they've played so hard and so well, and that defense has been so tight. You suddenly go, well, hang on a second. You've got the burgeonings of a great, combination of a team here. The backups, the key depth players have actually played extremely well for the Saints at different times, even though they haven't had obviously the superstars like with Michael Thomas being out for the season, like with obviously Drew Brees having retired, that they've had in years gone past. Alvin Kamara's had a poorish season by his standards, but that's because he's been injured at times, and also everyone's been able to key off on him, frankly. But I'm looking forward as they usually draft pretty well. I mean, look at that draft where they turned around their entire salary cap problems. We're drafting Kamara, Lattimore, the 2 guards in the same draft season. That was, they can draft well. They can resolve their quarterback position, and they will be a threat in a pretty weak NFC South. You're going to have a 45-year-old Tom Brady, Matt Rule, who's being questioned by Panthers fans if he actually knows how to coach, and a Falcons team, which is kind of in a similar bucket, just trying to rebuild a side for a future push. I think it's a year too soon. I think the 49ers, frankly, I don't want to give away. Well, heck it. The 49ers will win, so it doesn't really matter what the Saints do. But yes, do I think they're going to have enough to beat a very, very inconsistent Falcons side? Yes. So I'll go Saints in this one.
Thanks everybody for the comments. Thanks to Christina saying Saints, Falcons going to Falcon. Mark saying the Saints are going to throw it away and help the 49ers out. The Saints need to win, and they need San Francisco to lose. That being said, I think they'll win today. I don't want to give away my pick for the 49ers game, but it's an interesting one because I was sort of siding a little bit this week with the Falcons because the game is in Atlanta. The game is in Atlanta, yeah?
Yeah.
Just have a feeling, Cal Pitts, is he going to score a touchdown on American soil this year, or what's the crack? Or is he not Is he not going to? He's still had a great season. I think it'll be a close game, but I'm going to take the Saints. I think Kamara will get them over the line. And I am, as Mark says, intrigued to see what Sean Payton can do next year. But I think in terms of how the NFC looks at the minute, I think it's just too far for them to get in. And that's it.
Isn't it? I'm trying to remember, Brian and Colin. Isn't it that the Saints play in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium and the Falcons also play in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium? So, Mike, you've given sometimes being confused as to who's at home exactly.
Caesar Superdome. It's now changed, but yes. Absolutely.
Oh, there you go.
Lovely.
Mark, get your betting head on.
Come on, Mark. It's 10:32 in the morning, Mark. Come on. Panthers 5-11, Bucks 12-4. So we're getting into the games now where we're looking at teams that are into the playoffs already. The Bucks are already there, 12-4. They've clinched the division. Bucks finally clinching that division for the first time in a long time. Colin, who have you got? The Panthers or the Bucks?
Well, for the Panthers, a season that began so brightly has really turned out to be a huge disappointment. You look at their quarterbacks and all the issues that they've had there. I see last night Matt Rule, he is going to be coming back. That's the talk. They're talking about shopping CMC. For the Bucks, obviously, it's been around the Antonio Brown fiasco that's been going on. Just plug in my computer so it doesn't die. But Antonio Brown just seems to want to burn bridges. He just had a number of goes at Tom Brady this week. You're talking about a guy who's now fallen out with Mike Tomlin, with Bill Belichick, with Bruce Arians, with Tom Brady, with Ben Roethlisberger. How Balotelli famously had the "why always me." That could be Antonio Brown also. Some of the sympathy he got, maybe on last Monday, saying around the ankle. Well, some of the texts and some of the things he said during the week, I think, may have changed that. Look, for this, I think the Bucks really need to clean up their run defense. They signed Vita Vea up to a big extension, so maybe he'll want to put on a show. The other thing for me on this is nobody is as stats obsessed as Tom Brady. He needs 120 yards to break the Bucks record. He needs 246 to break his own record, and he needs one more touchdown to break the Bucks record. Expect Tom Brady to go all out. If he has to play every single snap, he will do that to break those records, and it's the Bucks for me.
Colin, you left Mike Mayock out there. You forgot about his stint for the Raiders during the offseason when he made that big free agency move to the Raiders, and that didn't materialise, and his poor foot got, injured, the toe injury and all the rest. God, it's a fiasco with that guy. Look, bear in mind, he's only played each other 2 weeks ago, and it was a right good drubbing in Carolina. I mean, the Bucks put good numbers up on them, and they had a lot of injuries at the time, and they still ran up high scores. And despite the struggles last week against the Jets, they still put up good numbers again in terms of the points and the stats. With players still absent, obviously Evans came back last week, so he'll have a week on in terms of being a lot fitter. The Bucks are going to win this game. I can't see any other way. I'm surprised Matt Rule is coming back. I suppose you could throw me into the same kind of scenario as Joe Judge in terms of second year, but he's 10-22 after 2 years. They were 3-0 to start the season. Looked like they were going in a good direction. I know we've all kind of had our different opinions on Sam Darnold, but I think it's inevitable now he really isn't the answer there. And where do they go to get their quarterback, which is difficult? Well, maybe it will be in this draft again. Yeah, 3-0 and then went 2-11. They want the season over. And yeah, the Bucks will win, and obviously then see if there's any opportunity for them to jump up to that 2 seed.
Brian, you mentioned Sam Darnold starting 3-0, and he's only been 1-6 since then as part of the Panthers' decline. It's a good thing you don't have $18 million locked into him under contract for next season. No, they do have $18 million locked into him next season. It's difficult to know how the Panthers really reshape that roster. Colin alluding to the rumors about shopping CMC completely blowing it up. Matt Rule even coming under a lot of pressure from that fan base, a lot of pressure, and someone who joined on a 7-year contract for the idea that you could build slowly. They're not seeing the build. They're not seeing that development, and you can understand their frustration. For the Buccaneers, Colin alludes to the stats. Mike Evans has got a bit of a milestone as well. The only receiver to ever open his career with 7 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. He's 54 yards off making it 8 in a row. So maybe Brady tries to feed him the ball to help him achieve that particular scenario. And the Bucs do have something to play for here. The Rams are in a tough game against the 49ers. If the Rams lose and the Bucs win, the Bucs vault up to the 2nd seed, which potentially guarantees them at least 2 home games if they proceed through the first wildcard weekend. So that's an important balance to consider.
Well, first off, I'm picking the Bucs. Secondly, what a week! If anybody has TikTok, you know what I'm talking about. What a week for Antonio Brown, the Bucs. Bruce Arians, they need a win this week to try and push this ahead and put this into the rear distance, because I am speechless at some of the things I've seen this week. Have half the team got COVID? What's going on? Like, it's mad stuff. Great for Brady to break the records. You see a lot of older heads, not like our age group, but like 60 and over, around that there complaining, oh, but sure, there's an extra week. Yeah, whatever. It's grand. Let him break the record. Let him have the crack. He'll be playing for the next 100 years anyway. The Panthers, no, 5-12, and let's see what they do next season. Who are going to draft? But the Bucs should run away with this. I can't see how the Panthers have a chance. And we probably should have put this in the first part, but the reality is the Bucs are 3rd seed at the minute in the NFC, and we treat them with that lovely respect. And as Antonio Brown said himself, I can't wait to see how they're going to play today without their number 1 wide receiver. So it'll be interesting to see.
They're okay, Michael. Mike Evans is playing.
Chris Godwin as well. They've got him as well. I don't know if he's playing, but they have him. So
yeah,
I mean, like he's there. He's probably around the same talent level as Brown is, in my opinion. But we'll see what happens.
Well, with the broken ACL.
Yeah. Let's. Well, I know. No, I'm talking generally. He said on the documentary that he thought he was the best in Tampa Bay by a country mile, basically. Okay, Titans 11-5, Texans 4-12. It's simple for the Titans today. The Titans need to win to get the number 1 seed in the AFC. Home field advantage runs through Nissan Stadium, and also a week off. Who wouldn't love a week off? I'd love a week off. 4 weeks to go. Colin, who is winning this game today? The Titans, as we said there, need all of that there to happen. All they have to do today is win. Who's going to win?
Well, these two teams played one of the more bizarre games I think that's ever been played back in November, when the Texans got a win. Texans didn't play particularly well. Trad Taylor threw for just over 100 yards. Their top rusher had 40 yards, but the Titans just got nothing going on the day. Ryan Tannehill was a turnover machine, 4 interceptions, and they couldn't get anything going on the ground. I think Adrian Peterson was their leading rusher at the time with 40 yards as well. So it was a really strange game, but they did lose it. I imagine they will be looking to avenge that, and they have a whole lot to play for in this one. I would say that Foreman has kind of got up ahead of steam over the last few weeks, and the way in which you really get at this Texans team is on the ground. I expect that Derrick Henry isn't yet back, but he has been activated, or not activated, but he's been designated to return. So he will be back for the playoffs. I think that the Tennessee Titans will be the number 1 seed, having overcome the Houston Texans today.
A Texans team that has won 2 of their last 3 games, and if you look at the game in which they played last week in Santa Clara against the 49ers, they were in it up to the 4th quarter, and there was a 13-point loss, but it wasn't really reflective of how the game played out, and there was some very dubious refereeing decisions where fumbles were deemed to be called dead, and kind of some things went against the Texans, and you could argue if they had went their way, they may have got the shock. Certainly, you're playing for the head coach. Colin, you've touched on the fact that they've played here already, and Texans have pulled off the win. They'll fancy their chances. I think I read a great report this week where they said the second best quarterback coming out of rookie class last year isn't anybody in the first round. It's actually after Mac Jones, it's Mills. He's been really effective and it's really come into his own in the past few weeks. So I think they'll give them a game. For the Titans, I mean, I know they're going to get the 1 seed. They'll win today, and everybody's saying like Derrick Henry's coming back, and obviously he's crucial to them getting to the Super Bowl, because if you look at the 11 teams that have qualified for the playoffs, the Titans are last in terms of average points they score on offense of 24 points. They don't blow teams away. They did last week, but if when they don't blow teams away, they're not putting up huge points on teams, and that could come and catch it in the playoffs. But they'll win this game. It won't be a great game, but they'll do enough. And they'll look to 2 weeks' time, and Derrick Henry coming back is a huge piece of the jigsaw in terms of getting them to the Super Bowl in LA.
Colin alluding to the Titans losing to the Texans earlier in the season. That was part of the real bad swoon from the Titans. You remember they lost 3 out of 4 games. It looked like that they weren't going to reset properly after Derrick Henry's injury. And now look at them in the driving seat for the first seed. It's bizarre when you consider it. In this season, they've lost to the Texans and the Jets, and they are still the presumptive favorites to be the first seed in the AFC. For me, they have put righted the ship. It is not the most dominant first seed you've ever seen in your life, and I'm not expecting anyone to believe that. But one thing they do dominate in is down low in the lines. They've got a very impressive offensive line, well coached up, always have adapted to the changes that they've had in the last couple of off seasons with moving parts there. And on the defensive line, that is the strength of their defense. We've talked quite a lot about Landry, but I mean, they've just been capable of getting pressure with 4 quite consistently, strong in the run game, and that's where they need to dominate. I mean, they're in Nashville, so it's like Garth Brooks used to sing about. They've got friends in low places, and that's down low where it really matters. For me, I've got the Titans. I've got the AFC therefore running through Nashville, so we can have lots and lots of country music references during the playoffs. And I actually heard Carrie Underwood commenting on Antonio Brown's antics, and she's saying that maybe next time he'll think before he tweets. No, before he cheats, before he tweets.
No.
Nobody country music.
No,
Jesus, I was waiting for the.
Right.
It wasn't. It just wasn't that funny, Mark.
Tennessee need to win today to get the number 1 seed and to also get a week off in the playoff picture. As it stands, they are hosting the Chargers next weekend if they don't win today. In terms of today, Tennessee have had good weeks, they've had bad weeks, they've had injuries. Against the Jets, for example, the Titans only converted 5 of their 19 third down attempts. And Ryan Tannehill was sacked 7 times. In that home loss to the Texans recently, they converted just 6 of their 15 third down chances and turned the ball over 5 times. That day was very poor with the weather, I think, if I can remember, but at the same time, it wasn't good enough. And then Pittsburgh sacked Tannehill 4 times. So it's all on protecting Tannehill today and just trying to get over the line. I think they will get over the line. And I'm intrigued to see how this Titans team goes down the stretch over the next few weeks. Vrabel, for me, as it stands, is the coach of the year. I'm picking the Titans. Okay, Colts 9-7 going up against the Jaguars, who are 2-14. I had a graphic made for the Colts. Now I don't, but the Colts are in. Yeah, that's the NFC. No, they're not. Wow.
No, Colts have to win.
9-7. Look at that. They have to win. Right. I actually had a graphic made and it took me like an hour, but no one cares. Go on ahead, Colin.
Well, the crazy thing is, and one of the stats that I saw when doing some research into this, the Colts haven't won at Jacksonville since 2014, despite the fact that the Jags have had 1 winning season in that entire stretch, 2017, the legendary Jacksonville Jaguars season. For the Jags, this has just been an unmitigated disaster. And obviously this week the talk of Bill O'Brien potentially coming in, and saw people trying to defend Bill O'Brien's record with the Texans. But when you look at the trades that Bill O'Brien made and the fact that what he gave away and what he gave up for certain players wouldn't exactly inspire a whole lot of confidence if you're a Jags fan. The Colts have to win this, and I think that on that basis they will. They've had injuries this week. DeForest Buckner, in particular, is just so good. So he will obviously be a loss. But I expect to see plenty of Jonathan Taylor, and I think Jonathan Taylor is good enough to carry this team to a win in Jacksonville.
It's 6 years since the Colts won in Jacksonville. Who would have thought it? What a strange one. Bearing in mind how poor the Jags have been over the years and how, I suppose, efficient the Colts have been, with the playoff runs, and that's a surprise. But look, this Jacksonville team, they want the season over. It's been an absolute disaster, in fairness, and it hasn't been helped this week with the news that the GM is returning, which is obviously really upset all the Jacksonville fans. I don't know if you've read the story around the fact that they're having a clown party there today at the game. Everybody's coming dressed as clowns. Yeah, and basically to make the point to the owner that you need to also remove the GM as soon as possible. Otherwise, we've no hope. In terms of turning things around in the future, they're looking ahead. Jonathan Taylor, there's other players on that team. If Wentz gets his game together, because I do think that is a problem at the moment. I don't think Wentz is playing at the level he should be for this team. I know he's had a good season. We had the fact that the COVID situation last week. He didn't look great when he came in last week against the Raiders. And I think that's a concern. But for this game, it won't be. I think the Colts will do more than enough to win the game. And then they'll look ahead to next week and see where they're going in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm glad you called that out, Bron. I was about to say about Trent Baalke. I hadn't realized this, and I saw it during the week. When he left 49ers and then joined Jacksonville, he actually went through a period where he fired each head coach 5 years in a row, only lasted a season. And look, some, Thomas Sula in 49ers, you kind of thought was a dodgy hire at the time. But if your GM is firing people that regularly, it's like at some point, they're the problem. It's not the coach. They're the problem. And in fact, his history seems to be coming back to bite him now, because there are rumors that his very presence is hindering the coaching search. That there are people, Josh McDaniels turned him down, even from interviewing in New England. A couple of the coordinators in other places have also turned down the opportunity to even interview for the job. Some of that could be down to Shad Khan's influence, but a lot of it seems to be down to Trent Baalke's influence. So the fans are trying to vote with their feet, with their presence, saying with the clown party, as Brian alluded to, get out. For me, the Colts season, the MVP, if you're allowed to vote for MVPs who aren't quarterbacks, would be Jonathan Taylor. He might just take, it's going to be tight, guys, but I think he might take the NFL rushing title this week. I mean, he's only 529 yards ahead of Joe Mixon. So it's going to be a squeaky one, but I think he just might nip it at the end. Taylor and the Colts, for me, they need to win. They can't slip up. If they slip up, Steelers still have hope. The Ravens still have hope. And of course, the infamous scenario of if the Chargers and Raiders tied, it would get them both in. So I don't think it's going to be that. I think the Colts win and they kill any lingering miracle dreams in other places.
Yeah, that would be a disaster scenario for the NFL if that happened. It was almost a disaster scenario for the NFL last night. I mean, the reason the Chiefs were playing last night was to put the pressure on the Titans. Could you imagine if that didn't happen? So Colts 9-7 need to win today to get in or guarantee their spot in the playoffs. Like, look at the difference between the AFC and the NFC. Like, it's literally like at least some teams have a decent chance here. Yeah, they have to win or tie, or Chargers lose and the Baltimore-Pittsburgh tie, or the Chargers lose, Pittsburgh lost, and Miami win. I'm not doing the maths. I don't care. I think they'll win today by a country mile. The handicap is -14.5 at Matchbook. We're partners at Code Irish NFL Show. I think they'll cover that. I think Jonathan Taylor will show up and just, at the end of the day, I think me or Colin could pad up, or used to as well, and just hand it off to Taylor. As long as we can catch the ball. Yeah.
So, Michael, you say actually just on the playoff picture, Kansas lost last night would have still been really interesting in the seeding, because even if Kansas had lost, and this is the thing about things being so tight, the Titans still had pressure because a Bills win or a Patriots win would have knocked the Titans out of top seed as well. So the Titans still have pressure to win, obviously to seal the first seed, but it wasn't a guaranteed thing. Literally, I actually saw the Pats could have until last night be anywhere from first seed to seventh seed based on this last week. So it's still all movable to us there.
Lovely. I appreciate your feedback there, and it's been a very interesting year in the AFC. I don't think next year will be like that, but we should enjoy it because it's competitive. Jets, Bills. This is the AFC East situation in terms of the Bills. The Bills can clinch the AFC East title with a win or a New England loss or a tie in both the Buffalo and New England games. Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not. Colin, who have you got in this game today?
Well, just given that we're on the AFC East, and I know Mark has to drop off in a bit, and he mentioned around Josh McDaniels turning down an interview, and it might be because of Shad Khan, or it might be because of Trent Ballaghy, or it might just be because one never knows what you're going to get when Josh McDaniels is involved in a franchise. Will he take a job? Will he leave you in the lurch? Will he trade away your franchise QB for a packet of peanuts, spy on the opposition, get caught, and then leave in the middle of the night? Who knows what you're going to get with Josh McDaniels when he's not in the safe OC role in Foxborough. But this is another AFC East game. I can't call it a battle because I don't think it will be that. For the Jets, this is, I think, all about seeing how Zach Wilson does against the number one defense in the league. He's had at times where I don't think he's had a full game. I think he's had halves or quarters where he's looked good at times, but he's turned the ball over far too frequently as well. And going up against a Bills defense that have allowed 11 passing touchdowns and forced 19 interceptions, it will be interesting to see how Zach Wilson does. I think that's probably the most interesting thing from this game. For the Jets, it's going to be next year where they really need to take the step forward. For them, it's not going to be getting a win today. The Bills, I think, tend to, outside of the Jags game, they beat up on bad teams. They should do that again today as long as they're focused.
Well, the Jets fans have been encouraged of late because they've seen Wilson not throw an interception for the last 4 games, and bearing in mind how many he was thrown earlier in the season, that's something that he seems to be getting right, and maybe that will lead into next season. There's been positives there. He said that he wasn't playing consistently for 4 quarters. He seemed to have got that right over the past 2 weeks because he played well right to the end against the Jags. And then last week, in fairness, that game, we discussed it on Monday, that 4th and 2 blown play at the end. That goes right. They win a big game, and that's probably one of the shocks of the season. And he played really well in that game. So there is positives for the Jets. They've got some good draft picks coming their way. There's an argument that they've got cap space. I would say they're moving reasonably in the right direction. The head coach seems to be someone that the players have bought into. But for this game, yeah, Colin was right. I mean, Bills, I think they set a record last week for winning by 10 points or more in something like 17 games in a row. They're going to win this game. The only thing I could see is the Jets slowing it down by using it, which has been a really good run game. Carter's had a good season, and if they can pound the ball and keep the Bills off the field, it could be a little bit more of a tighter game than it's expected. The line is 17 points. The Jets are getting 17 points. I think that's a bit too much, to be honest. I think the Bills will find their way to Bills will win, but I don't know if they'll win by 17. I could see 13, 14 points, but Bills win and move on.
Yeah, Colin alluded to Bucks winning the AFC South for the first time in a long time. 14 years between winning the division. The Jets' misery of sadness is 11 years now since they even made the playoffs. Their lone division titles, like 11 years since they even made the playoffs. Those solid days of Rex Ryan bringing them to back-to-back AFC Championship games seems a long, long time ago. The guys kind of alluded to it. There have been a few green shoots of recovery there. Robert Saleh seems to now starting to be molding the team the way he wants them to be. Braxton Berrios, who was an undrafted free agent, actually, Patriots tried to stash him on the practice squad a couple of years ago, and the Jets picked him up off the practice squad at final man cutdowns. Has shown real green shoots in the last while. He's been performed very well again in the Bucks game, but I think he's had about 20 catches over the last few games. Good news in that regard. Bad news is he's out for today's game. So even those green shoots sometimes get chopped out at the roots. Look, I would love the Jets to win this game. I would really, really, really appreciate if the Jets could win this game and the Patriots have a chance at the AFC East and a home game. Unfortunately, I have every belief that the Jets will let me down just as they've let down their fan base for the last 11 years and, in fact, most of their history. So I've got the Bills to win this game.
Sorry, coffee. Sorry. This is a sort of game where you can see the Jets going into a 7-0 lead, and everyone going, oh, what's going to happen here? Oh, they could lose the AFC East, and then boom, they don't. They win by like 20 or 30, and that's the reality of it. I am excited. There was a fan, genuinely, of the NFL, seeing how far Miami have come in the last few weeks. The Patriots are getting back to their old ways again. The Buffalo Bills, what a difference a month makes. And maybe the Jets can turn it around with Salah. Just a few comments. I think Mark Hailsberg was saying in the comments, Salah to disrupt it today. I just can't see it. I can't see it. And I'm taking the Bills to go 11-6 and to, in my opinion, deservedly win the AFC East. But they've had a rough time of it. Like, my God, like how they've got from where they were to now is interesting. Right, here we go, Mark. And I know you have to bounce in a few minutes. I've got your boy. I've got the best picture I could of him. New England Patriots. The Patriots basically they can get the AFC's top seed, but they can get the AFC's division. All they got to do is to win today, or they can tie and Buffalo can win. So surely, Mark, you know what? I'll let you start off with because it's your team, but surely that gives you hope today going into this game. A tie and the Buffalo
they
loss.
Need to win and Buffalo to lose. So if Buffalo don't lose, it's meaningless. So that's why I'm supporting the Jets so heavily. So if Buffalo win, like the AFC East is gone, so therefore we have to rely upon the wild card. The key for the Pats, as I say, is going to be though they want to win. They don't want to slip any further down the wild cards necessarily. But who will they play? If the Bengals lose and the Bills win, that could flip round. But otherwise, it could be the trilogy next week. This isn't an easy game for the Pats in any way, shape, or form. They have a tendency to lose down in Miami. They have a tendency to lose in week 17, week 18, the last game of the season, to the Dolphins. And it's messed us up, actually, I think, in 3 years in the last 20, certainly in that regard. The Dolphins, though, are coming off an absolute shellacking against the Titans last week. That 7-game win streak, they're out of contention for the playoffs altogether. There's no mathematical way in which they can qualify. You'll have to ask about how motivating driven they are for this. I think they still will be. It's a divisional rival. And the Patriots, on the other hand, are coming off a 50-burger against the Jaguars, righting a lot of wrongs. So they'll want to show and continue that momentum going into the playoffs. For me, I don't think it will come as a massive surprise to people. I still have the Patriots to win this game because actually I think they're going to go all out to win. They are going to leave things to chance. They still want to see the connection with Matt Jones, his receiving core, still keep that dynamic running game going. And hopefully, for me anyway, and for Patriots fans all around Ireland, UK, Europe, and of course in the US of A, the Patriots go marching on in the playoffs for a couple more weeks to go.
The reality is that Mac Jones has been the most impressive rookie QB, and that to get to the playoffs with a rookie QB is enormously impressive in and of itself. Depending on how far they go, you could make a case that Bill Belichick is once again Coach of the Year, but we'll see what happens in the playoffs. For Jones, he sitting in around 68% completion rate. He's second only to 2007 Tom Brady in terms of the Patriots record for completion. He's second only to Dak Prescott for rookie completion rate. So he is exactly who Bill Belichick wanted him to be. And I think that photograph that you put up on the graphic, Michael, was perfect because he is just a machine who is focused on getting the ball out and winning at all costs, as the ankle drag against the Panthers showed. He truly has moved over to the dark side. This is going to be fascinating. Belichick against Flores and Tua against Mac. I'm going to say that the Patriots, given what they had, is still in at play for them, are going to get the win. But I don't think it'd be a shock if the Dolphins were to, turn them over. But I think that the Patriots will do it and will go to 11-6 on the season, based off the options that they have in terms of that passing game and also the running game. And I just think the Dolphins defense has to show up more than it did last week, and the offense, but the Patriots.
When Flores goes up against Belichick, these games are always competitive, and in fairness to Flores, he's done a number on them a couple of times. I mean, they beat them week 1. I recall week 1 last year, the Patriots won with Cam's quarterback, but at the end, I think the Dolphins were driving potentially to put a score in that would make the game even closer. I think they intercepted in the end zone. And then there was the shock a couple of years ago where they went into Foxborough and won and knocked the Patriots out number 1 seed when it was Brady's team. So he's always played them tight. So I see a close game. I'm actually excited with the Dolphins here, and I actually it's not so much what's going to happen on the field, it's what's going to happen elsewhere. I think Belichick is a very clever man, as we all know, and I think he will look at a situation, come the third and fourth quarter, if he knows that the Bills are well ahead, he'll take players out, because I genuinely believe they would rather play the Bengals next week than play Buffalo again. And if they were to win that and drop down the seeding, the likelihood they probably could go into Tennessee if they were to pull off the win against the Bengals. And then the likelihood they'd go number 1 seed, and I think they'd have a far better opportunity of beating the Titans as opposed to going into Kansas City and beating the Chiefs. So a lot of different permutations, but I can see a reason as to why come the fourth quarter, if the game was out of sight up in Buffalo, they would look to rest players out, and I think Miami would obviously be playing full tilt to win the game anyway. And a game that will in all likelihood should be competitive, bearing in mind how it's gone the last 4 or 5 times they played. So for me, I think there's a bigger conversation off the field as opposed to what's on the field, and for that reason I'm picking the Dolphins.
Hi to Mad Sports Network, and also to David Conlon for your comments. David Conlon saying it's too early for the bad jokes, Mark. He's also saying Miami D feasts on rookie QBs. Let's hope the trend continues today. Fins up. Well, I'm continuing my trend today, and that is picking the Patriots. I'm going to keep doing it every week now in the hope that it somehow may make it unfortunate for them. But I genuinely, to be honest with you, I think they'll win this game. I think they'll get it over the line, and I think they'll finish second in the AFC East. And they have done very well with rookie quarterback, incredibly well to get to the playoffs in a 1-year absence. That is fantastic for them, and let's see how far they can go. I would like to see Buffalo against New England next week in Buffalo in normal weather. I can't wait for it, because that will be a hell of a game.
Yeah, Michael, just to close this out, I mean, just to give people a sense on why Patriots fans don't like going to Miami. During the Belichick era, Miami are the only team who have a home winning record against the Patriots overall. I think they're 12-9. By contrast, Buffalo are 3-19 when the Patriots come to town. There are some other subplots. We're talking about stats. Jalen Waddle's had an amazing season. He's 1 catch off 100 catches for the season, and therefore only 2 catches off Anquan Bolden's old rookie record of 101 for the season. So I reckon he breaks that. I did love the picture because I was vibing on, Colin alluded to the machine. It looks like Robert Patrick in Terminator 2. So Mac Jones is the T-1000. He's the look, it's just like Robert Patrick. It's perfect. He's the T-1000. The only problem is the T-1000 melts at the end. I'd rather he won, but yeah, that's a different thing. And there are some other stats involved, like Nick Folk has a chance of breaking Ryan Succop's old record for most consecutive field goals within 50. But I want to just give one final call out. Week 18, we talked about Big Ben. There's lots of last games there will be for players. And I'm sure we'll allude to a lot more of these in our roundup on Monday. But a lot of players will play their last game in the NFL or leave their team for the last time and things like that. There's every chance Matthew Slater, 36 years of age, record special teamer, will not come back next year to New England. He just is likely to retire. Hasn't yet decided. But if he does, it's probably the greatest special team player since the days of Steve Tasker. He's been an amazing servant to New England. He's been an amazing team captain for many years. And he's one of those types of players you don't hear mentioned all the time. We always talk about the flash players, the ones that make the big splashy plays. But you need a team of 53. You need a team combined. You need those players that gel them all together. And Matt Slater's been that 110%. Forevermore famous for calling heads, obviously in Kansas City as well. But those type of players, whether they play for the Patriots, whether they play for the Bengals, the Jets, whoever, it doesn't matter. They deserve a call out equally at these moments in time as well.
I think because he won't play in Germany next year against the Chiefs. That was a joke. Jason Kelsey as well for the Eagles last night. Let's look at. I love these picks, by the way, and I like your pick as well, Brad. Let's look at the NFC West. We got 2 games in the NFC West, and we got Sunday Night Football. In terms of the Cardinals going up against the Seahawks, the Cardinals can win the NFC West division title with a win and a Rams loss. Interesting game. Colin, who have you got?
Yeah, I suppose, look, the question will be, is this Russell Wilson's last game as a Seahawk? Is it Pete Carroll's last game coaching the Seahawks? I would have to say Russell Wilson has been making all the noises about wanting to stay, as has Aaron Rodgers. It's been interesting to watch over the course of the season. So let's see what the offseason might bring. The Seahawks have been more impressive in recent weeks, and a lot of that is Penny, how good he has been coming in. Missed a lot through injury, but has been showing in recent weeks just what a dangerous player he can be. And when the Seahawks have a running game, and you have Russell Wilson's ability then to make plays happen, that's obviously when they're at their most dangerous. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. So I think this should be a really interesting one. The Cardinals have to get the win, I think, at home to show, that they can actually do that, and they're still in with a chance of clinching the division. They have designated JJ Watt to return for the playoffs, which should give them a boost as well. You imagine. I think this will be a tight game between these two. Again, Vance Joseph's defense needs to pick it up. We saw them get the win in Jerry's world. I think that the Cardinals will have enough just because they have more to play for. And I don't think it'll be Russell Wilson's maybe last game in Seattle, or it certainly doesn't have that feel to it in the same way that, say, Big Ben with the Steelers. So I'm going to go with the Cards to win this.
I'm very high on the Cardinals in this game. Haven't seen them last week come back to what we saw earlier in the season. I know we touched on the fact that Kyler Murray always wins in Texas, but he looked his old self last week. We touched on it on Monday's show. He was more efficient in terms of running the ball. Once that option is there from, it makes the defense have to think twice around whether they're going to be running, throwing, passing the ball, and obviously, capturing him in a particular run. So Seattle's defense hasn't been great for large parts of the season. I could see the Cards putting the point numbers on them, and I do think Russell Wilson is moving on, but I think it's going to get to that stage where it's inevitable that's going to happen. And I think that's more of a story for a show over the coming weeks in terms of what's going to happen there, because there's huge permutation around the cap there for Seattle. If he goes before June, it's 53 million on the cap. If he goes after June, it's 18 million. So I'm sure there's things to be discussed there. But on the game itself, I think the Cardinals will win and put themselves in a position that if there's any slip in the game, I believe we're going to discuss next, they will then obviously win the division. So big game for the Cards, and I think they'll win.
Yeah, my pick here is inevitably linked to that other game. I think, in fact, Seattle's best chance of winning this game is if Brian's Miami-New England theory works in this game. If the Rams are significantly up against the 49ers, the Cards literally have nothing to play for. They are absolutely locked into the 5th seed. They can't be overtaken by anyone else in terms of wildcard standings. So if the Rams are walking it, why risk players? Take them out. I think JJ Watt's designation is intriguing, and that certainly adds a new dimension, hopefully, to their defense for the postseason and the postseason games to come. But I think the Rams 49ers game will be close. Therefore, I think the Cardinals keep their starters in, and I think that would be more than enough for the Seahawks. It is a divisional game. You never know. They're always toughly fought. But the Seahawks season's petering out. The Cardinals season is still just beginning.
Still just beginning. JJ Watt's back. Let's see how long he lasts this time. In all seriousness, it's great for a neutral, and I'm excited to see how the Cardinals play over the next few weeks. I think they'll run away with this game, to be honest with you. I think the Seahawks have been very, very poor this year, and I agree with Colin. I think Russell Wilson, well, I don't know if Colin explicitly said this, I'm going to move on, but I think Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll will be there week 1, September 2022. I really do. And let's see what happens. But Cardinals for me, and it obviously does inexplicitly link with this game that we're going to look at now. Obviously, the Rams going up against the 49ers in SoFi Stadium. That game's on Sky Sports at 9:25. Huge game. Rams clinch the division title with a win or a tie, or an Arizona loss or a tie. What a game. Mark, do you want to go first? You're going to drop off, I think?
Yeah, no, sure. I've got to run. So this is a fantastic game. I mean, other than the Chargers Raiders game, for me, this is the game of the weekend. Both teams have something meaningful to play for. 49ers, obviously, to secure win and you're in. Rams win and you've got your divisional title. They don't like each other very much. They're divisional rivals. Why would they? And the 49ers, in the last while, if I remember the history correctly, have tended to own the Rams and dominate the Rams in the last games. I think it's 5 out of the last 6, if I've got that ordered the right way around. For me, the 49ers have thrown away a great opportunity the last couple of weeks. The inexcusable loss against the Titans, for example. and Jimmy G obviously misfiring in that particular regard. I think their running attack is the key to this game. And whereas, of course, the Rams would love Trey Lance to drop back into coverage, or Jimmy if he's going to play, so Von Miller and Aaron Donald all can tee off on him. I think it's going to keep being ball control, long sustained drives, keep the ball on the ground, get the ball into Kittle's hands and Debo's hands at the right time. It is the game plan. It sounds boring. They've tried to apply for the last 10 weeks of the season, and it has been super effective at that point in time. And I think that's going to be enough for this Rams team. They have been boom or bust too many times. Yes, they're playing for the divisional title, but I just have this feeling that they're going to wilt at the wrong time. They're a team made of superstars rather than a team forged in the heat of battle. And I don't trust Matthew Stafford at all. And I definitely don't trust Sean McVay, who I still think, and I called it out earlier in the season, is the reason they won't win a Super Bowl, as opposed to the reason they will win a Super Bowl in that regard. He still wants to be the smartest boy in the room. A bit like Colum's friend Kyle Shanahan, as I know he might allude to as well, because Kyle Shanahan definitely fits into that column, having lost potentially 2 Super Bowls with his play calling before. But for me, I just feel like the 49ers are going to edge it. And I know that's going to come as manna from heaven for the Cards fans as well, because then it opens the door for them to swoop like a cardinal into the NFC West and take away home field advantage for the playoffs. And with that, I'm going to love you and leave yous.
Hold on. Who's winning Sunday Night Football?
Chargers, Raiders, go Chargers. That's what I'll say. Bolts all the way in that one. Raiders fans, please don't hate me, kill me, hunt me down and search for me. But I think the Chargers are going to have enough in that. But I got to go. I look forward to watching the games tonight and talking to you boys about it tomorrow night also. All right.
See you tomorrow night.
Take it easy.
Have a good day. Let's go Bills. Okay. That's Mark gone. Well, boys, it's been a good show. That's us. I'm only joking. Colin, going by the order of the graphics, you're next. So who have you got in this game?
Yeah, look, we've talked about this and talk about high stakes. They win and there's huge rewards for both teams. And for me, I suppose there's 2 things. Keep an eye on Cooper Kupp, who is looking to earn the triple crown as such, leading the league in catches, receiving yards, and touchdowns. And Aaron Donald has 98 career sacks. He will be looking to make it 100. It's a really interesting one, because I do, as Mark has alluded to, think Kyle Shanahan has a tendency to want to be the smartest guy in the room, but he has had McVay's number. They have won the last five games, and during that time, I would say that the Rams have been the better team throughout most of that. Not always, but yet the 49ers have still had their number. I think that is quite telling, and I think that in Debo Samuel, they have a really interesting weapon. It's going to be to see how these 2 sides kind of go at one another. Kittle, I think, is pretty close on a 1,000-yard season as well. I think this could go either way. Absolutely, nobody's going to be surprised by either team. I think I would imagine the Rams are favorites. Brian probably has a better idea on that than me, but I'm going to say that it's going to be the 49ers, the Kyle Shanahan, and is going to continue to have McVay's number, and that they are going to win. So I'm going to agree with Mark that it's the 49ers.
From a betting perspective, Colin, the Rams are 4.5-point favorites, so the bookies are expecting them to win by 5 or more. So you call it a touchdown game. My concerns with the 49ers are around this quarterback situation, which is probably very obvious, bearing in mind where we're at. Like Trey Lance has played last week against a poor Texans team, and it took him a long time to get going. I was surprised by how inefficient he was in the run game, because having looked at him come out, and we did so much analysis last year when we were doing our draft coverage, that he was supposed to be one of these type of quarterbacks, and there was similarities to Kaepernick, but he's obviously far superior than him, and he can run at a speed, But last week didn't seem to get it going, and he struggled. And I know me and Colin have had a bit of a ding dong joking. Collins obviously was very high on him. I'm still question mark whether he was the right pick at that number 3 spot. It looks like from reading stuff coming out throughout the night that Jimmy G is in fact going to start. They're going to start with him. With an operation of a chip bone, usually it's what they say 4 to 5 weeks before a player should be playing again. He's going to play within a week. So that's a big surprise for me. And I think this could be a situation where they'll start him. Things aren't going well. Trey Lance will come in. So there's too many unknowns for me in the situation. Kittler's kind of fallen back. He's regressed to where he was earlier in the season. The last 3 weeks, he's only caught, I think, something in the region of 30 receiving yards. Maybe that's kind of reflective of where they are with the quarterback situation over the past few weeks. Like the Rams, we talked about the Rams last week, and we were saying about the fact that they've won 4 or 5 in a row. And the last time they did that at this time of the year, they went to 2 Super Bowls, and they're not really getting, I'd say, the credit that they deserve right now. They're kind of floating under the radar. Do I think they'll go to Super Bowl? Probably not. I kind of agree with Mark. I think McVay will be found out when it comes to the high-stake, high-rolling games in the playoffs. But for this instance, knowing that if they win, they wrap up 2 seed, and they put them in a position where they can at least get 2 home games before having to go on the road. I think it's too big for me. And bearing in mind where the 49ers are, I think it's the Rams who are coming into this game with all the momentum, as opposed to the 49ers, who struggled against a weak Texans team last week. So for me, I think the Rams will win, wrap up number 2 seed. And bearing in mind that we've picked the Saints to win in Atlanta, it'll be the Saints that pick up that number 7 seed, and we'll go to the Rams next weekend.
I like it. I have not got the hype around the 49ers this week, Brian, with all the outlets online. I'm not saying they're a bad team. They're not a bad team, but the Rams are a better team, and they're playing at home for a place to win a division. I think the Rams are going to win this game. I'm not going to say it's going to be comfortable. I think it'll be close, but I just don't trust the 49ers to go to Los Angeles and get the win. I don't. And I know we have a lot of 49ers fans that watch this. We've also a lot of Rams fans that watch this. I just can't see it. At the end of the day, I just think the 49ers won't edge this game. I think the offense for the Rams will get there, and its defense will stack up well. I think they'll run the ball well, the 49ers, but it just won't be enough. And I am taking the Rams to win this game. Rams going to go 13-4 for me, and they're going to win the NFC West. Okay, really quickly, we're going to look at our best bets with our partners Matchbook before we look ahead to Sunday Night Football between the Chargers and the Raiders, game 272 of the season. Brian, obviously great to have Matchbook on our side as partners. Code Irish NFL Show gets you £20, €20 welcome offer, money back as cash if your first bet loses. All the T's and C's are below there. 18 plus. Please gamble aware. What's your thoughts ahead of this week 18 today, Brian? It's obviously a huge week in the NFL.
It's a tough weekend for betting, to be fair, for people who are out there who are trying to find the right accumulators, because there's games where they're obviously who's going to win the games, but the line in terms of the betting line is, it's difficult to place a bet on a team that has 1 to 14, 1 to 15. So for me, I'm picking the teams that there's a couple of games in here that teams that there's nothing on the game, and they would be the Washington football team. I think they'll beat the Giants. I think the Minnesota Vikings will beat the Chicago Bears, and then I'm taking it to games where there is something on the line, and that's the Saints. I think the Saints will go into Atlanta and win. And I touched on it there around the Rams. I think the Rams 4.5 point favorites, but on the money line, I think 1 to 2 with Matchbook. So that's the one I'm going to lean with. So the Rams, Saints, the Washington football team, and the Vikings. 4-team accumulator. I think it pays in the region of 3-1, 7-2 with Matchbook. And there's some other alternatives there if you want to. But if you don't want to get on the side of betting on games itself, there's overalls in terms of the totals. You can bet on that as well. So there is options there if you want to shy away from a difficult weekend of games to pick, to be fair. So yeah, they're the 4 teams, but I'm confident enough that we will see a winner there this weekend.
I'm interested as well, Brian. Week 18 it's a very unpredictable week, but the over and under might be easier than the handicap. For example, that Browns-Bengals game, the over under set 37.5 with Matchbook. But sometimes the handicap can be difficult to bet on this week when we have backups playing.
Yeah, like last night's line on the Chiefs game was 46 points. I mean, that went over, and then I think it was in the region of 46, 47 on the Cowboys game, and that went significantly over. I think it was in the region of 70 points. So, there is games there today, and the nothing games the defense tends to be a little bit looser in week 17, so I could see a few games going in the over, but it is a very, very tricky weekend, so we do advise to bet responsibly and not to get carried away with a stacked amount of games that you could be putting your money on.
You can click on our link on the tweet above for week 18 odds with Matchbook. £20, €20 welcome offer. Money back as cash if your first bet loses. The bonus code is Irish NFL Show, and all the T's and C's are below 18 plus. The T's and C's apply. Please be gamble aware. And thanks to Matchbook for their continued support of the Irish NFL Show. Okay, welcome back in the column here. He disappeared for a second. We got a special guest as well, boys. We'll bring him in, yeah? Bring him in for the crack. Yeah. Here he is, Jeffrey. He is Starbucks.
What's up, fellas? How you doing?
Hey,
little coffee with the coach with the Irish fellas now.
How's the form? Good?
Hey, how about the games last night, man?
Man, what about your shirt last night, more importantly?
Loved it. Yeah,
I was channeling calm.
Fantastic.
He's the only guy with a deeper closet of Hawaiian shirts than me and Ric Flair.
Ric Flair.
Woo!
Can we get a photo with the three of us at some stage, Jeff?
Hey, man, I'm going to tell you something. I'm all in. Let's go.
Jeff, after that first drive last night when the Chiefs went right down the field and Kelsey scored, it looked like it was going to be a nothing game. And the only thing we were talking about at that time was your shirt.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, man. You can see what the formula is that everybody's kind of figured out to at least limit the Chiefs. You're going to play all kinds of too deep. You're going to keep the ball in front of you. You're going to make Mahomes be patient and make him run. Now, I'll give him a lot of credit because, like we illustrated or telestrated last night, how when he sees that they don't have a quarterback player, for example, when they're in some sort of match coverage or they're in two-man or any of those man structures, and you don't have a guy for him in your scheme, that he's going to take off and run with the ball, and he's a better runner than people give him credit for.
Jeff, I suppose you saw at the Broncos last night, they played hard, and they have played hard for Vic Fangio over the course of the 3 seasons, but ultimately they've come up short the entire time. He's 19-30 as a head coach. What do you think? I mean, and not necessarily, I'm just wondering, when a team is playing for the coach, but they're still coming up short, what can you do in that situation?
Well, let me make this really clear. And again, I'm a lifetime coach, right? And I've done it in pro football for 30 years. One of the things you learn in this business is that it's a business, and your business is to win football games. And if you don't win football games, they're going to get another guy to do it. Now, there is a lot of frustration right now in Broncos country, a lot of it, because you're talking about a team and a franchise that was one of the best and most respected in the National Football League, and they've lost 13 straight to conference rival Kansas City. 13 straight games. That's unheard of. And you're talking about 6 years not being in the playoffs. There was a standard once in Denver when Shanahan was there and Pat Bowlen was the owner. There was a standard they talked about. And the frustration that exists right now in the Broncos fan base is that they don't live up to the standard anymore. And, you know, I understand the team's being sold and there's a lot of uncertainty around all of that. But to be honest with you guys, it ain't about playing hard. It's about winning games. And right now, they're not good enough. They have not had a legitimate quarterback in Denver since Peyton Manning rode off into the sunset. And they've been through a ton of them. And, you know, John Elway has to share some of that blame because he was the one that oversaw the draft and personally selected the quarterbacks and all of it. And we've been through all of it. Simeon, Paxton Lynch, on and on and on and on and on. And we watched Drew Lock last night miss wide open receivers on throws that you got to make as an NFL quarterback in big games. And so, you know, I just think that I would not be surprised if they don't clean house in Denver.
Let's stay on the Denver subject for a second. We'll just look at Sunday Night Football first, Jeff. Brian has to jump in a couple of minutes. I'm sure we got you for 5 or 10 minutes. But we'll go Brian, Colin, then you, Jeff. Sunday Night Football is a really interesting one, Brian. Obviously, Chargers, Raiders, win. And then, Brian, who have you got first off?
Well,
the Raiders.
all right. Let me just here's the deal. I love the Raiders, but every time I pick them, they lose. So Raider Nation has called me personally and said, do not pick the Raiders ever again, right? So I'm going to take the Chargers. But I'm telling you, Rich Bisaccia has done a fantastic job with that Raider team. You talk about a guy that's stepped into a program, Gruden gets fired because of crazy emails. Then you got the Ruggs situation. It's just on and on and on. And he's found a way to keep that team playing, and not just playing hard, but winning games and being in a position in the 17th game to go to the playoffs. And I know that everybody wants that next hot guy, but I'm going to tell you something. They have to think hard about Rich Bisaccia as the next head coach in Oakland and in Las Vegas, and take the interim off of his name.
Brian, who have you got?
You just won't come as a surprise to you, Michael. I am picking the Raiders. It's hard overhead in this game. You look at it. I look back at the game which they played earlier in the season, and for large parts of the game, the Chargers dominated, and the Raiders got back within the score, but the Chargers pulled away again. Offensively, they got better players, better quarterback. But there's something, and I agree with Jeff. There's so many storylines, and I'll even go back as far as the draft. I mean, one of the storylines coming out of the first round was Alex Leatherwood. Everybody was shocked that they picked him in the first round. There's been so many stories off the field as opposed to on the field. But the past 3 weeks, their defense has really improved. We saw that last week against the Colts. We saw it against the Broncos. And we saw it against the Browns on that game that got moved. So I just think they're going to find a way. I think something going on. They're playing for the coach. And Staley, I know people are high on him, but there's been games this season where he's left points behind. That game against the Chiefs where he should have taken field goals, and they would have won that game. I still think there's inconsistencies there, and I don't know whether they'll have enough to go into Vegas on a big night for Herbert and win. So for me, I'm picking the Raiders. I picked them to go to playoffs last September, Michael, by the way. Just reminding you of that. So hopefully it comes true.
Remind me in the morning.
I'll have the autumn wind playing on your phone in the morning.
Mark is taking the Chargers. Before we hear Jeff's feedback here, Colin, who have you got in this game? AFC West battle, two good teams.
Yeah, two good teams. I think the thing to keep an eye on here ultimately for the Raiders is Derek Carr. Earlier this year, the Chargers put a pretty solid beatdown on the Raiders, and there were some interesting comments from Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa came out after the game and said that you can get to Derek Carr, you can get in his head, that if you hit him a few times, he gets shook and he shuts down. And those were really interesting comments. I expect that you'll see, a reaction to that now. Joey Bosa came out this week and a lot of love, and Derek Carr's a great guy and he's a good quarterback. But those post-game comments, I think, were interesting. I think there's a lot of pressure on Derek Carr to get it right for the Raiders, to show that he really is a top quality franchise QB. I think this will be a really fascinating game. But ultimately, I am going to go with Justin Herbert and the Chargers and Brandon Staley's defense to do enough to take the Chargers in to the playoffs and to break Raiders' hearts once again. They'll get close, but ultimately, for me, it's going to be the Chargers.
Brian, do you have to leave us? And we'll. I don't know. Yeah,
No,
I'll see you tomorrow night. And Brian, thanks for your picks today.
Yeah,
Can't wait to
thanks
see you,
very
Raiders.
much. I'll see you soon. Take care.
See you soon. All the best. God bless. We'll try and hold the fort. I was going to kick him out there. See the crack. There he is. Anyway, Jeff, I have to say, as a fan, it was great to have you back on TV last night. It was good. It was good crack.
I tell you, it was great to be back. And I'm going to tell you something. That video wall that we have with the telestrator, man, that is like the coolest thing going. It was really awesome to be able to show the viewers about how Mahomes, when you don't have a quarterback player, man, that I know that's the way you got to defend him, to take away the vertical passing game. But he's really grown as a quarterback in his maturity and his decision-making process. The balls that he was forcing early in the year that got picked because he was trying to make those big splash throws, he's really, really starting to understand how to attack a defense. And I think that's a credit to Andy Reid and the coaching staff in Kansas City, because, there aren't a lot of guys that, grow up like that quick during the course of the season.
Jeff, one of the other really big games this evening is the 49ers against the Rams. And Kyle Shanahan has had McVay's number in the last 5 games, but with so much on the line for both teams this evening, wondering what your thoughts are ahead of the 49ers versus the Rams.
Well, you know what? You watch this game and you analyze it and you see that the 49ers attack the Rams where you need to attack them, and that's run the ball right at them on the edges of that defense, because that defense is built to rush the passer. Now, obviously, Aaron Donald inside is a huge factor in the game, but it's the edges, it's the outside zone, the bounce, the G play, all of those kinds of things that that San Francisco does a great job with. Now, it's going to be really important for Raheem Morris to come up with a scheme that creates a hard edge for the Rams. If not, San Francisco will show you they'll just run the ball on you, and they'll keep running it until you like it, and or you make them get out of it. So I think that's the big key. You're right. The Niners are not afraid of the Rams. They're not intimidated by the Rams' talent. And I think for the Rams to play well and for the Rams to get into the playoffs and do well in the playoffs, I'm talking about deep into the playoffs, Super Bowl kind of team. Matthew Stafford's got to stop throwing picks, because you get into playoff football against playoff level defenses and you throw 3 picks in a game, you're not going to win the game very many times. So I think it's really critical that he starts to, exercise a little bit better decision making, in terms of throwing balls into coverage. Cooper Kupp obviously is going to make plays. OBJ is going to make plays. When they can run the ball, they're really a good football team. But if they're relying on Matthew Stafford to make plays, I don't know. See, that's a frustrated Rams fan right there talking about Matthew Stafford, and all of a sudden the stock market fell around here.
I thought that was you, Jeff, after you lost your bag, or is it too soon to say that, or what's the?
Hold on a second. There we go.
There we go. Here, Jeff, we'll try and go, if you have the time, we'll try and go 4 or 5 minutes, if that's okay with you, or if your coffee gets too cold.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
I was just going to say we'll try and go another 4 or 5 minutes and then jump off as long as you have the time first, man. But
no, I got time for you, fellas. I got about 5 more minutes if we want to do it.
Awesome. Let's do it. I've put on the screen here now, Jeff, and just for everyone watching or listening, this is how it stands going into next weekend at the minute. Obviously, it can change today, but there's some really interesting games. And for me, Jeff, that Arizona-Dallas potential game is intriguing, but there's so many good matchups. But seeing Green Bay and Tennessee get that week off, it really gives you the massive advantage, doesn't it, going into the wild card?
Yeah, and I think the biggest key, the week off is great, right? But both Tennessee and Green Bay, if they can get home field advantage through the playoffs, they're going to be tough to beat, right? Because Green Bay plays so well in Lambeau and so well late in the season in Lambeau. And then Tennessee, with Derrick Henry coming back with fresh legs at home in Tennessee, that's a handful now. So obviously, we had this discussion last night about, is it worth the week off? Is it, a big deal to get the number 1 seed? And analytics would tell you it's not. But I'm going to tell you something, analytics don't play the game. And analytics isn't 17 weeks into an NFL season with a beat up body and tired, right? So again, that's one of the reasons why I'm really shy about using analytics to make decisions about things. The reality of it is, if you're playing or coaching, you want that week off and you want that home field through the playoffs.
Jeff, on the Patriots are back in the playoffs. 1 year out, they get a rookie QB, and they've managed to, I suppose, play to his strengths. They haven't asked him to do too much. They've leaned on the running game. They've leaned on the shorter pass game. Game against the Dolphins today, Belichick against Flores. Just your thoughts, I suppose, on the Patriots and maybe a little bit on this game against the Dolphins.
Well, I think Mac Jones has been a revelation. And again, he's a great quarterback for Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick. And I'm not saying he's Tom Brady, but I'm telling you, he's Brady-esque in a lot of things. He understands the game. He's very accurate with the ball. He makes good decisions, especially good decisions for a rookie. And he fits into that scheme. And that's a scheme fit is really important for a young quarterback. I think we see that around the league when some of the guys come into the league and you know, the scheme doesn't fit their talent. And then all of a sudden, you know, they're labeled a bust. Well, you know, Mac Jones is built for that Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniels scheme. The Patriots can run the football and they play great defense. And those are two ingredients for playoff success. So I think they'll run the ball at Miami today. I think they'll pound away at them. And, you know, obviously they want to win the game, but they want to get to the playoffs. And, you know, again, when you get Bill Belichick in the playoffs, you know, it's hard to bet against them, fellas. Now, I'm not saying that they're talented enough to, you know, to win the AFC, but I do think they will make everybody work to beat them. And, you know, that's when you get in the playoffs, that's part of the deal. The game gets tighter in the playoffs. The game is played differently in the playoffs. You know, it's coached differently in the playoffs. And there's no guy with more playoff experience than Bill Belichick.
Jeff, some great matchups tonight on Sky Sports. Obviously, the Colts against the Jaguars and the Rams against the 49ers. And obviously Red Zone as well. I want to thank you for coming on here this morning, chatting to everybody. And I know you're a busy man. You're probably still jet lagged massively, but very, very enjoyable last night between yourself, Sean Neal, and also Ryan Leaf as well. Great partnership on TV. And look, enjoy tonight. Very quickly, one-word answer. We're sitting here week 18, an incredible week 18. Who's going to win it all, Jeff? You can tell us now because we're 1 minute 37, or sorry, 1 hour 37.
Who's going to win it all? The fans are going to win it all because it's going to be a great run up to the Super Bowl.
Love that answer, Jeff, and can't wait to see what shirt you'll have later on.
All right, fellas, great visiting with you.
Appreciate it, Jeff. See you soon, man. All the best. And that Jeff Reinbold, the legendary Jeff Reinbold, outside of Starbucks. Thanks to Brian and Mark who had to pop off as well. But Colin, that's us for week 18. Yeah, that's it.
That is it. This been through the regular season. It has been incredible as always. I mean, you expect the unexpected in the NFL from some of the upsets that we've seen, from the Antonio Brown antics to some absolutely incredible performances. Be it Cooper Kupp, Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and on the defensive side of the ball. Amazing regular season. Can't wait to see what happens tonight. And we still have the playoffs to look forward to.
Playoffs to look forward to. Here is the AFC playoff picture going in very quickly before we go here. Chiefs are number one pick as it stands, but the Titans and the Texans today, they can go up. Raiders, the Steelers, Ravens in the hunt. Steelers and Ravens need a lot to happen. The Raiders need to win in Sunday night football to try and get it. They need to win. Or there's a few other permutations there that can happen. The Chargers win as well, gets them in. They are in the standing as it stands.
No one is going to want to face those Bengals in the playoffs, I don't think, Michael.
No, sir. No, sir. Saints, who knows what's going to happen with the Saints, but that's it. There is the picture for tonight. The Colts-Jaguars game is on Sky. The 49ers-Rams game is on Sky. Everything else is on NFL Game Pass in Ireland and the UK. And Chargers-Raiders is a big game. That's it. That's the season. That is it. Week 18. See you tomorrow night, Colin. Enjoy Week 18, folks.
Enjoy. See you tomorrow.